Alright guys, so in this video we're going to start to look at different components, and we're going to start off with buttons and button groups. So I'm in 3_2 buttons.html and go down to where it says start here, and first thing we're going to do is look at the different contextual colors that we can use with our buttons. So right here where we want this primary button and primary, secondary, success, these are all the same colors we've been dealing with in other elements. But when we have a button, we need to first add the BTN class. That's basically the core button class. So if we were to go over here and look at our dev tools at the CSS, we'll inspect this element here and look at the BTN class, and you can see it adds a lot of stuff. So it adds like an inline block, the font weight, text align center. It adds padding, border, font size, border radius, transition. It adds a lot of stuff. So that BTN class is very important for any button you create that you want to style. All right, if we want to change the color, then we can add the button dash and whatever context color. So for instance, primary. If I were to do just BTN primary, it's going to look like the default HTML with just a different color. So make sure you add that BTN class in there. All right, so for this, let's do secondary. So remember BTN and then BTN dash secondary. And when I first learned Bootstrap, that was something I struggled with. I always forgot to do the initial BTN and just did this. I did that quite a bit for a while. So for success, we'll do BTN success. So that will give us a green button by default. Of course, you could change the sass and change that color. So let's say BTN info, which will give us like a greenish bluish color. BTN warning will give us a yellow button. BTN, oops, we need our class. So BTN danger will be red, and that's often used for like delete buttons, stuff like that, stuff that you know, can have consequences if you click it and you really didn't mean to. You probably want to add some JavaScript in there to actually say, you know, are you sure you want to delete, stuff like that. So BTN, let's say light, which was added with Bootstrap 4. And we also have dark. Okay, so we have the light and the dark. Now this link one is if you have a button and you actually want to format it to look like a link, you could say BTN-link and save, and you can see now there's no border, there's no background or anything like that. It just looks like a link. Now you can use these button classes on different types of elements, so you can use them on actual links. So this right here is an actual A tag link, but if we add the BTN class, it's going to add all the padding and stuff, and it's not going to give it the gray background by default or the color, but we can add like BTN primary, and that will basically make it indistinguishable from a primary button. And we use these quite a bit, these links that are formatted like buttons. So next we just have the standard button, which we've been dealing with. So let's say BTN, we'll say success. That's just a regular button. Then we also have inputs, so different kinds of inputs. So input type button, of course, we could use. So we'll say BTN light. We also have submit buttons. So BTN, say warning. And then reset buttons are another type of input that we can use this on. So BTN, and we'll say I don't know, info, and save. And you can see that these they all look the same. They're the same sizing, same all the same attributes, but they're different. They're actually different elements or different tags or types. Now we also have outline classes, which are also new to Bootstrap 4. So we can say class BTN, and instead of saying BTN primary, we're going to say outline, BTN outline primary, and that'll give it a white background with a blue border and blue text, and when I hover over it, it then looks like the regular primary button. All right, so what I'll do is just copy this class here just to save a little time, and we'll just go ahead and paste all these in. And I know this sandbox can get a little tedious and a little repetitive, but I want to just get everything in it, and it's really important that you guys have this as a reference for for your projects and so on. So let's say secondary, that will be BTN outline secondary. This one will be BTN outline success. This one will be info. This one will be warning. Danger, which will be red. Light. Yeah, that's light, and dark. And let's save, and you can see these are all the different outline styles. All right, now in addition to colors, we have sizes. Now this here, this I tag with the class of FA, should actually be FAS with Font Awesome 5. But you can see up top here, we included the CDN for Font Awesome, which is an icon library, which we'll be using quite a bit throughout the projects. But I did this just to show you that we can put an icon inside of a button, which you can see right here. And it's very simple. We just have the button tag. We just put the I tag inside and then whatever text we want. So for size, let's say class, we obviously want our BTN class. Let's make it a primary color as well. And then let's save that and see what it looks like. So it's just a standard button with an icon. If we wanted to make it a little bigger though, we could say BTN LG, and that will make it bigger. So it's good for like showcase areas and stuff like that. We can also make buttons smaller. So here I'll say class equals, and let's do BTN success, and we can say BTN-SM and save, and now you'll see it's a little smaller than normal. And then block level buttons are buttons that we want to go all the way across. So for that we can say BTN, oops, we need our class. We can say BTN, let's do dark, and then we add the BTN block class and save, and that gives us a block level element. Okay, so I use these quite a bit with like login forms. We'll have the inputs and then the submit button down here. All right, so in addition to sizes, colors, and so on, we have different states that we can have. So a regular button is basically what we've been working with. Okay, so we have our regular button. We also have active buttons. So if we say class BTN, I'm just going to make all of these primary, but let's add a class of active, and notice it's a little darker. Okay, so these would be used in dynamic web applications or mobile applications where you'd want like an active state or something like that. We can do disabled as well, so we'll say button class BTN primary, and let's say disabled, and save. And now notice it's a little lighter and I can't really click on it. There's no pointer, cursor, or anything like that. And then we also have toggle state buttons. So for this, we're just going to add just the BTN class and then the color class. And then we just want to add an extra attribute called data-toggle, and we want to set that to button. And if I save that, notice if I click on this, it changes to the dark color. If I click on it, it goes back to the light. So again, these are used more in dynamic apps rather than just websites. Okay, so now we're going to move on to button groups, which is just that. They're groups of buttons. So for that, we want a div with the class of BTN-group. And then each button, we're just going to add our basic classes. So BTN primary. Now it's up to you if you want to use different colors or all the same color. I'm just going to do for the second one, we'll do secondary like that. And then for the last one, we'll use primary again. Oops, I forgot the BTN class. So I'll save, and now this is a button group. Notice that the left and right sides do have a radius and the middle does not, so it's meant to look like that. And then we also have button toolbars, which are kind of groups of groups. So we have two divs here. The first one, you want to give a class of BTN-toolbar. like that. And then this second div here, which wraps around one set of buttons, will have a class of btn-group. And then this div here around this set will also have btn-group. And then this last one, which is just one button, is still going to have a class of btn-group. And then each button will obviously need its own btn class and then whatever color you choose. So I'm just going to use primary for all of these. So I'll just go ahead and copy this class here and paste that in for all of these. All right, so let's save that, see what it looks like. Now we're probably going to want to move these over a little bit. So what we can do is the button group, we'll add a margin right -2. We'll do that here too, margin right -2, and save, and there we go. Okay, so now we have a button toolbar. Now we're going to look at a vertical group, okay? In addition to just having, groups going horizontally, we can do vertical. And I did put left, middle, right. This should actually now be top, middle, yeah, top, middle, bottom, since they're going to go that way. Okay, so to do this, we're going to add a class of btn group, just like we have been. The only difference here that we're going to do is it's actually going to be vertical. Okay, button group vertical, and then we'll just grab the color class. So we'll grab btn and btn primary and just paste that in here. And save, and now we have a vertical group. Okay, and obviously you could change the colors here if you want as well. All right, so now let's look at drop downs. We can actually just have single buttons with drop downs. So notice I have a div wrapped, and then I have a button, and then I have another div with some links, okay, which will be the actual drop down links. So we want to give this div a class of drop down. And then our button, obviously we just want to give our regular classes, so btn primary. But we also want to give it a class of dropdown-toggle. And we want to give it an extra attribute as well called data-toggle equals, and we want to set the value to dropdown. All right, and then down here in this div, we're going to give this a class of drop-down-menu, and then each item here should have a class of drop-down item. All right, and when we do the nav bar with drop-downs, you'll notice it's pretty much the same thing. We're going to need these classes, so we'll just do that, and let's save. And now you'll see we have a nice little drop-down. We can also do split drop-downs, meaning like we can have a button group and have one of them be a drop-down if we want. So we'll give this a class of btn group. And then you'll see we have two buttons here. This first one, I'm just going to give just a regular class of btn and btn primary. And then this second one here, I'm going to give a class of btn. Let's do secondary. So we'll do secondary, and then we also want to do drop down toggle just like we did above. And then we also want to give it the attribute of data-toggle and set that to drop down. And then as far as this this div goes, we can actually copy this whole thing here, the drop down menu, like that. Okay, and we'll save that. Notice now we have a drop down. Another thing we could do is we could put a divider inside the drop down. So right here, if we put a div, we can do a div with the class of drop down dash divider, like that, and save. And now if we look, you'll see that this one is kind of separated from the other ones. All right, so that's going to be it for this one, guys. We covered all the color classes, the outlines, the sizing, the states, the button groups, and the drop downs. So in the next video, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the nav bar, which is obviously a very important part of Bootstrap.